But very cool that we're going to see more affiliation with, I think, projects just getting those esports teams that certainly are sponsor starved, especially in NA. So the more the better, honestly, in our little NA scene. We'll see if anybody else gets picked up. But hey, we got our draft. Tiny Coddle, Storm Spirit Pugna. I mean, we're right at home. At least we're not seeing an offlaner picked up in the first phase, but that's why we're seeing all these offlane bans come through. I mean, we're right back at home with this draft. 731, baby.
Oh yeah, I mean at a certain point you can just kind of close your eyes and take a guess at what those first couple of picks will be, and you're probably 80% right no matter what you choose. So we are deep into this patch. Obviously the gameplay itself is still exciting, but we know what these teams want in terms of their selections. However, we are getting into that second phase of bans here, and these two squads are taking some rather divergent paths. Noun completely focused on that sort of carry position. Dusa, TA, and Anti-Mage all banned out. Meanwhile, for Infamous, with the DP and the DK, they're shifting a little bit more towards that offlane consideration.
Yeah, and I am kind of scratching my head over here because a lot of the heroes that Nouns actually ended up banning out here, of course, the Tiny is very flexible, and of course, these SA teams certainly are comfortable moving it to the 4 position. We've seen them run those lanes, keeping the balance in their drafts many times now. But at the same time, these are a lot of Coast to Bela heroes. These are heroes that I feel like if Infamous were forced into the alternate position, they get to ban out so many offlaners because Nouns banned out so many safe laners when, in fact, this Tiny could be Infamous' safe laner. So I find it very interesting that Nouns decided to go for this, and I understand the Anti-Mage ban specifically just because it does cover both your Storm and Pugna very well. But in terms of the Medusa and the TA, I certainly have a few concerns here, especially once we do get deeper into these hero pools. I just hope Costabile is going to be able to find himself on something that can fight versus the Tiny if we do see him go to that carry position.
And hold on, we'll take the Nyx Assassin for Infamous. That's a bit of an interesting one. Normally, the Nyx and the Coddle both kind of slot into that position 4 role. Of course, in fairness to Infamous, either one of those heroes could also just shift to the 5 fairly easily, but that's maybe not the role we see them in most often.
Yeah, and of course, we don't want to bring up the flexibility all too early here at Infamous's lineup. They do have last pick. This is what they're supposed to do with their lineup. But at the same time, it could be a Cuddle mid. It could be a Cuddle 5. A's played it many times before. I think we're pretty, it's pretty easy to call that it's most likely going to be a Michael Nix just because. I mean, he's the 4 beast player on that team. I think if you're going to give somebody with that many stuns, that many tools to play around with, might as well be him. But at the same time, I think this Kato is most likely going to be a 5, but there is always that kind of movement for you. You always get to do kind of that last minute change up on your opponents. Meanwhile, Nouns, I think they just need to pick up very, very solid heroes. But again, I'm just worried that they really kind of lost the best choices. I'm assuming don't really have the best options here, but you're probably just going to pick up your offlaner in your 4. Could see them go for something like the Tusk, which would be very nice for Z Freak, or even the Earth Spirit. I'd say just getting a silence, getting someone who's able to go in. They need a little bit of tank right now. The Pugna and the Storm Spirit are great, but you kind of need heroes in front for those heroes to really excel.
Right. They are looking for a little bit of that durability. The problem is, a lot of those options have been banned away. Infamous in Phase 2, and then Nouns themselves took away the Sand King and the Mars back in Phase 1. So the pool was a little bit thinned out, but they will go for the Night Stalker into the Hoodwink. So a very sort of aggressive pivot here in that second phase with their picks.
Yeah, and of course, Night Stalker, situationally both incredible versus Keeper of the Light and Nyx Assassin. You aren't really able to do very much versus that Crippling Fear. It is going to be a matter of whether or not he's able to find that backline very early on. You do, however, completely concede the lane if this is going to be a tiny carry. He's going to have a stellar start if that is what we're going to look at. But at the same time, at least they found, honestly, Muon to a hero that I think he can actually make plays with because, again, that offlane pulls get a little bit scary. So I think it's really great that they're able to actually find him on something that is so situationally fantastic here. And I mean, Zephyr Hoodwink, you couldn't ask for a better player hero combo. I mean, he's just an absolute beast of the game. If it wasn't that, you could see something if maybe they had another follow-up stun. Perhaps the Skyreth Mage would have also been a very good choice, just having someone to just murder everyone. But Hoodwink is easily going to slot in very nicely for him.
Now the sort of question gets flipped a little bit here. We were talking about Nouns looking for that offlane hero for themselves. Infamous are still in a similar position. No hero obvious so far for Oscar to play in a pool that's already been thinned out pretty significantly. So interesting to see what they go with. We have seen some teams so far, ET, in phase two just kind of dip back into that Tidehunter pickup, which had sort of dropped off in popularity. Do you think that that's just maybe a safety valve that you could throw Oscar on here?
Yeah, it is, but it also isn't because of how good the Night Stalker I think is in that matchup specifically. I think that's where Infamous right now, they're probably saying the mid pool's wide open. If we want to pick a Loans hero right now, this is their best opportunity to do so. And I could see them going for it. And I guess, yeah, they all will just pick up the Ember Spirit. But any hero they're going to pick here is going to have just a little bit of weakness. And of course, they're picking Ember into Storm, which in itself is not the worst lane, but it's definitely a lane that Storm Spirit can kind of work. It's just range versus melee. It's always going to feel like the Storm is just going to have that much more harassment out onto you. It's where really the rotations of the Nyx Assassin is going to make or break that lane, and whether or not he has time to, because Pugna is one of the best heroes at trading in Dota, period. He's just so obnoxious, has a great base damage, has just great attack range. You're not really able to make those trades, and Nyx Assassin especially is not able to make those trades. It's where Infamous really going to be hard pressed for those early game movements.
And of course, now with the Ember Spirit being picked up, this does basically kind of lock them in, I would say, to Parker playing that position one Tiny. Nouns, however, are not entirely convinced. You see the first ban there of phase three, they take away the Terrorblade, so they're okay with letting this Tiny go wherever it wants to go, so long as they don't let through one of those sort of big bads, and TB does sort of fit the bill for that perfectly.
Yeah, and I think the TB specifically as well, just having an illusion carry that's going to walk out the lanes, that you're not really able to track down the illusions, is where the Hoodwink has to go a little bit too deep. Night Stalker can't really deal with illusion-based heroes either. I think the TB ban is honestly perfect, but that's also where Infamous, it's kind of a poke play. I think they, again, have last overall pick. We could see this Tiny go in either position, but it's where Tidy as a 3 in SA is actually getting a little bit of speed. I think specifically with the Beast Ghost players, I've seen Whisper playing it a lot in his pubs, so maybe there's just a little bit of that, hey, Tiny's just a great hero. We could still move him around. He still does great physical damage, even if he is forced into that 3 position. I think what teams are realizing and figuring out is if they do pick him up this early, he gets countered out. You could still just buy an Echo Saber and play him like an offlane CK, and then he's still just tiny. So you're still just very happy with your situation. So I think that's where Nouns are splitting the bands as they need to because there is last pick. Infamous can keep them guessing.
Ooh,
Oh, but the NP. Okay, I like that pick a lot. That's your natural silence carrier. While it is a gamble pick, that is going to be a carry NP coming into this game. That is certainly a hero that can not only kite the tiny, but can also find that backline and naturally builds a silence. I mean, it's a great solution.
yeah, I think they've got themselves something that might need to be a little bit careful. The Nature's Prophet isn't always the tankiest individual in the world, but if you're playing the Prophet the way that we have seen in recent times, you are very rarely going to be in a position where you get caught out anyway. So interesting to see just what kind of impact the Prophet has, pushing wise, damage wise, really across the board, as Infamous will respond with the Underlord pickup here. So, well, maybe that is a position one Tiny after all. We'll see who takes what here. No decision forthcoming on that just yet. Meanwhile, on the Noun side, it's pretty straightforward. Prophet at the 1, Storm Spirit 2, Night Stalker 3, and you got Hoodwink and Pugna holding down those support positions.
Yeah, pretty easy, pretty basic. It's kind of funny, all the infamous cores haven't locked in yet, so I feel like we know where everybody's going, but yeah, they're gonna
Okay.
start filling in. But at the same time, Pit Lord's another hero getting a lot of steam. It's one of the, I want to say, best solutions versus Storm Spirit, but there really doesn't feel like there are many two great solutions versus the hero. He just always finds a way to snowball. He very rarely gets shut down. And I think the problem that we're in at Dota right now is that Storm is great without Pugna, without Io, without Coddle. I feel like as long as Storm is still an option without having a buddy to play with, the hero is just kind of crazy. And then when you do get a buddy, then it's just even more insane. So now I think it's definitely troublesome, but that's where maybe this pit ward is going to be a little bit more of an answer. You have to be careful about the pit. You have to be careful about those chain routes. But at the same time, you just do so much damage. It's so easy to die at any point of the game just because Storm zips on you from tower and you can't react to that.
Hmm. Not to mention the fact that you could potentially have a Nature's Prophet who will be in that carry role and will have a lot more damage to bring to the table as well, who could just global TP in. So this feels like a lineup where Nouns are really going to try and push the tempo. That's not even mentioning the Night Stalker, who is kind of the epitome of an aggressive offlane hero. So Infamous are going to have to be aware of that. The tempo is going to shift, presumably, very quickly. They're going to have to be ready if heroes like the Tiny and the Ember Spirit are kind of slow on those first couple of item pickups. They could be in some real trouble.
Yeah, and at the same time, you got a Tiny in the bot lane, and you've got a Pit Lord top. So we should be seeing Infamous supports rotate every single rune, every 2 minutes, always trying to keep this bottle empty. And if Gunner's bottle can be empty, he's gonna have to go to base. He's going to have to look for those TP plays on the tier ones, and if he doesn't find those, you can certainly slow down a Storm Spirit a lot if he does start to whiff consistently on those plays. But it's just a matter of making the Storm Spirit miss. Unfortunately, it's really easy to hit.
Yeah, making a miss is much easier said than done, but that is the task set before Infamous. As we mentioned every time we see the Storm, though, yeah, it's not unbeatable. It's very, very strong, but teams have found ways around it in the past. Infamous hoping to be one of those squads right now, as we are losing a player. Oscar has DC'd, so hopefully we can get him back in quickly, and we'll see if there's any sort of actual aggression in the early stages. Nouns did go for this early smoke play, but this isn't really a coordinated push, just looking to get out, maybe drop some early wards. As Z-Freak has no money and only a set of wards. Am I glitched out, or?
He really wanted to get out of the base. Um, he's got the normal starting items sitting in his courier, but
Ah,
it's gonna be a hot sec before they actually get to him. But I
okay.
think the goal here is for Z Freak to maybe get a I don't know, you can't see my drawing because it's on pause, but on the lower hill down here in the bottom radiant jungle, because as we've seen in many of our games in BTS Pro Series 11 so far, if you go for this upper hill, it just gets dewarded every single time. So many words have gotten killed on that hill, so I think maybe an alternative purpose for the smoke. Of course, you get in the mid lane just a little bit faster, but Gutter doesn't have a ward, so that doesn't really matter. I think it's mainly just Z-Freak getting deep vision, seeing couriers, and you can certainly snipe a whole bunch of couriers with this hoodwink. But throw it all aside, Z-Freak just wants the basic ward, but good vision bottom.
Just get that lane ward down. Why not? You're going up against the Tiny, trying to disrupt him as much as possible through the sentry down to presumably to block that camp. Yeah, just barely inside of that square. So setting up for the lane. Meanwhile, any move on the Infamous side? Every time we see the Storm Spirit, we talk about that sort of side camp, desperately wanting to sort of keep it blocked off, but Infamous haven't really been able to get across the river to
I
this point.
predict with
So,
utter certainty that the enemy team has got this in the bag.
nice line. But yeah, they're not actually going for that. They'll ward their own sort of mid lane here instead. So maybe they're just assuming at a certain point Gunner's going to find his farm. So let's protect alone as best as we can and see how he stacks up just in the straight up 1v1.
Ooh, getting walked out a little bit. Husky gets to trade, but uh, got to see it. It's really funny with the Radiant Ward. All it takes is one tower shot, and now you suddenly know if you're Nouns that there is going to be a ward. Gunner's probably going to be able to buy a sentry maybe later on in the lane, but they know about Alone's vision. It is kind of crazy. All it takes is one tower shot.
Hmm? Like it's a little bit busted, but well, we'll see how Alone does in this lane. As you mentioned, this Ember is a hero that sort of gets called upon a little bit often against this Storm Spirit in particular, but the Storm always has that sort of opening to maybe play a little bit more aggressively, and considering we've got Gunner on the Storm this time, highly doubt he's just going to sit back and play passively, unless he can secure just a stupid godly amount of farm, right? If that is the case, then by all means, he'll just play back and take that advantage, but if that's not the case, I assume he's going to try and put some pressure on Alone here.
Yeah, and The reason that the Storm versus Ember matchup is so much better is you can fight for ranged creeps. You don't have to be too concerned. Alone's doing a really good job of just getting the few denies and aggro backs that he can. I mean, neither of these mid laners is really missing a beat CS wise because they really can't afford to. Really, the only mistake you can make in this lane is just eating a few too many creeps, a few too many right clicks, and then not buying a salve on Alone. But with how fast Alone got his bottle, and I mean, he got as many last hits as he needed to. I think the lane will really start to level out here. But again, that's where the rotation in from the supports can kind of make or break everything, as well as those little vortex plays. It's just so brutal. It does just become a lot of damage that you have to deal with.
Gunnar doing well for himself so far. Meanwhile, up top, there was a little bit of a skirmish. Lane got pulled basically into the jungle, but both sides sort of able to hold their own here. And this is going to be an interesting one for Oscar on this offlane Underlord. He's got those treants to deal with, but at the same time, well, it's a little bit of extra gold, right? 8 gold apiece is maybe not spectacular, but as an offlaner, you're really just looking for anything that you can get. And if you can get a couple of treants here and there and stay in this lane and pick up experience, then it's going to be in a pretty solid spot. You see him sitting at level 3 already. His support has done a pretty spectacular job of staying out of the lane.
Yeah, and at the same time, you do want levels on Michael, but it's just more important to get that really leveled up Firestorm. That's what's going to help you trade. At the same time, as well, it's also very difficult because Husky is just being the obnoxious trader, and these are two heroes that are just very obnoxious to play into, both the NP and the Pugna. They're just going to right click you over and over and over again. I mean, Oscar's right now getting the walk back by the Treants and the Pugna. There's not really much he can do here. And there's especially nothing that Michael can do. It's just a weakness of the Nyx Assassin. Unless you're hitting 2-man impales, it really isn't going to affect the lane all too much.
While over in the middle lane, Gunner's looking for the kill onto Alone. He just barely misses out, popped the overload there, but level 1 overload wasn't quite enough. Alone's able to survive, but, well, we were talking about Gunner trying to apply some pressure, and there it is. And now Alone, he's basically going to have to rely on the runes here. He does still have a wand and some tangos, but, and never mind. You don't need a bottle refill when Michael's there to just do it for you, or
He was heaping
not?
from top. Yeah,
That's right.
it's a little bit strange. I mean, he TP's here, and then now it's a race for the top bounty, which I think he'll narrowly make it, unless Husky goes for the deny on it. But yeah, a little bit strange. I think this is a rotation that he would have wanted to make right now, maybe 10 seconds in the future compared to where he was playing before, because now Gunnar gets the bottom bounty rune, and it's this lack of rotation that I'm a little bit concerned about from Infamous, because it is a game of cat and mouse where if you could shut down Gunnar, you can't really make all too many plays, and at the same time, I don't know. It's a little bit awkward, I think, to dislodge the Nyx Assassin as much as you can, because it's not like Oscar's having any freer of a time either. They really just need to get those large camp pulls off, but he isn't able to by himself.
Yeah, so you're not quite able to get the pulls that you want. That rotation mid is very strange and doesn't really accomplish much other than getting the bounty rune, but yeah, this is going to be a problem for Infamous, because you take a look at the other support in the Coddle, he's just kind of stuck here down bot, trying to keep that support on Parker, so you have really sort of crippled your ability to make any rotations right now. Meanwhile, in terms of the Night Stalker, his last hitting's just fine. 20-2 for Moose so far. He's got a couple of bracers in hand, so I think he's really overly concerned. And look at Z-Freak. He might go hunting. Already used the Bushwhack, but he can sort of stay on A. He might be able to find this kill, but that Coddle's just that little bit faster.
Hero's just way too easy to walk away with. Does take a courier though. It's nice on the tail end there for that play, but now that it's nighttime, oh, this is a nice TP.
There's the
It's A.
Bushwhack. Parker's
Oh,
locked down. That's all it takes. This was the point that we were just sort of going with. A was sticking in this lane so much because Parker did kind of need his support. Once your Keeper of the Light's forced out of lane, it hits nighttime, Moo gets that first kill, and that is always the big one for the Night Stalker, right? On that first night, you want to sort of get that momentum started. It just makes the rest of your game so much easier.
yeah, and I'm a little perplexed by Parker especially. I think A is taking a lot of XP here. You kind of do inevitably, and they love this kill onto Moo, and they should get it.
One more? Okay.
Yep.
Parker gets his revenge, and meanwhile up in the top lane, yeah, Oscar gets taken down by Costabile, so, well, Infamous, they get something, right? You get a kill into the hands of your carry. It just comes at a cost as the carry on the opposing side grabs himself a kill as well. And now, well, this Prophet is going to start becoming more of an issue. He's hit level 6. He's got the TP and the Wrath of Nature, so can start affecting more than just his own lane. I don't know if he's going to seriously consider frequent rotations, but see him already actually looking for the kill onto Michael. That is a nice carapace, though, to keep him safe, and looks like everything's going to be just fine. Meanwhile, back down bot, Parker getting jumped in on again. Moo and Z-Freak want the kill. They're going to get it. And now Costable comes in. He popped the ult. A gets clipped by it, and well, right on cue. Said the Nature's Prophet has the ability to affect more than his own lane, and there it is. And now alone, do you want to be here? There's still 4 enemy heroes in this lane. I don't know if he has the damage to get a quick kill and then make his escape.
No, but he's got this arcane rune, and he'd love to make a play, but it's just so awkward. And I kind of agree. He left a remnant, goes back mid, is going to start getting that push. They don't know about the Storm Spirit, but they would if they stuck in their lane just a little bit longer here. But this is the problem. You want to send heroes versus this Nature's Prophet, especially the Pit Lord. You really just want to chase him around the map. But with how rough an early game Oscar has had, it hasn't really kind of come through here. At the same time, now Moo is level 6, so we could see that Dark Ascension. We just see these cores sync up with each other and find some really easy picks. It's where, at the very least, Parker was able to get his 6, so he has a little bit more armor to play around with. I think that's why he goes down so easily in those last 2 engagements. It's just not being level 6, being a 0 armor hero. It's always a little bit sad, but at the same time, I do feel like Nouns are getting pretty much exactly what they want here. They love a little bit more XP on their supports, just play a little bit less around that tome timing, but Z-Freak's almost level 6, and probably going to give the tome over to Husky, and then Nouns are at full force. They're just going to run at their opponents.
I got a bit of a, let's call it a lore question at this point, ET. So Grow gives you armor, right? As we all know. It gives you bonus armor, right? But as far as I'm aware, Grow is just tiny getting bigger, hence the name, right? As I'll get back to that point in a moment. Alone's just going to charge in here, says, shut up, Kmart, there's a fight going on. Can they get the kill, though? Dark Ascension's going to allow Moo to really just sort of navigate around them. This is not an easy kill by any means, and it's one they might not even get. Look at Moo go. He's just going to be able to walk away.
Look at that.
He's
just walking.
Unfortunate. And now, over on the other side of the map, Oscar, it's picked off. If everyone's attention's down bot, then Costable and Husky will make their move. They get the kill. Now they'll get some damage onto the tower. And to the point. Okay, right. I'll keep this short now. Grow makes you bigger, right? That is the most natural progression I could possibly see. So why is this not natural armor? Why is it bonus armor?
I like to just imagine that, you know, coding the game was too hard, so it's just a plate mail. Just literally a plate mail. And then they just added chainmail on top of it. And guess what? They added another plate mail, and they take away the chainmail. Oh, and he's level 18. It's so well made. That's really the long and the short of it, though.
True.
And
Path of least resistance is the coder's way.
I'm so sad, though. We're not seeing the Moonshard build coming in from the Tiny, as we see the Tier 1 bottom just gets brutalized a little bit here. But
Yeah.
there is no way for them to kind of get their heroes around that bottom tower. And unfortunately, again, it comes back to this Pit Lord. Oscar is just a very large target right now. Until we see him kind of tank up here, it is going to feel like a little bit of a struggle. But unfortunately for Oscar, he's not really tanking up. He's going to finish off these phase boots. He's going to look for the Atos because he needs control. It's simply a problem where Alone is really going to be the durable one, but he's also itemizing for damage, so there are big concerns.
Oh, but it's daytime. Yeah. Not gonna have the opportunity. Ult not back up for 45, so that looked like a pretty solid shot. If it's still night, if you have the flying, Alone was sitting on maybe like a third of his health, but to make that play. But start seeing Moo now looking for opportunities. Now that these lanes have sort of broken down a little bit, he is trying to play a little bit more aggressively. Really would love for him to actually have a charge on this urn, though. That would go a long way towards maybe giving him more of the green light for that aggression, but at least he has the urn right now, and see what options come his way in the next couple of minutes here, because right now, Nouns are kind of just biding their time, looking for that next set of items. Costable is able to get himself the Maelstrom, and got your Storm Spirit sitting on that triple null build, and he's looking to make a move. Jumping onto Oscar in the top lane. Here comes Costable TPing in. Here comes Moo, flying his way forward. That Dark Ascension, not even really sure they needed it, but They're willing to collapse to get that kill, and now they might find another because the Coddle's been spotted in the river. Not getting out of that one. Husky's able to help out on
Oh.
that kill, and now alone, this is a little bit risky as well. He tries to get a quick kill on a Z-Freak, but that's just going to get him killed.
Oh, and they had a sentry down. They know about
Oh
Michael.
no, Michael. He's trying so damn hard, but there's going to be that Vortex to pull him in, and they blow him up. Z-Freak is the ultimate bait. They get 3 or 4 kills there in total if you include Oscar's death earlier on, and they don't lose a single hero.
You know, it's 4-0. It's really pulled apart. I mean, man, Storm Spirit again. He can get you whenever. It's mistakes that you aren't making. So many people need to think about the game so differently, with the Storm Spirit just being the way it is. I mean, in terms of brokenness, it's Primal Beast levels of you are pushing a tier 1 tower, you're completely fine, Storm TP's from Fountain, and you're dead. And you got a Fairy's Trinket to really top it all off. So, you know, the Storm really is kind of getting everything he wants, as so many Storm Spirits do find the Fairy's Trinket because you know the game just curries favor with those players. But at the same time, there is this more useful lineup that I think Nouns have really drafted for, and Infamous are kind of having to work a lot harder in terms of their own power. At least they have this mid tower. As soon as this mid tower goes down, though, then we're going to really see Infamous start to have very large issues in their draft. And I do like the smoke. They're looking for plays with the Vendetta. It's one of their easy comeback mechanisms. They love to find Nature's Prophet. He still is just an impale away from dying. He is very simple. It's a very simple kill, but... Oh, Gunner.
Okay. Gonna start it off with...
No!
Oh, no! Oh, yikes. Well, the good news is you got the Vendetta damage. The bad news is you missed basically everything else. Michael, that is uncharacteristic. He is normally a pretty steady hand in terms of those initiations, but... First game of the day, maybe a little bit off the mark there in terms of that coordination, but that sucks, because that wasn't speculative. I mean, if you hit the Impale, that was probably a kill they would have gotten, considering how many heroes they had in the area.
Yep, it's a little bit unfortunate, but hey, you know, you have to whiff every once in a while, right?
Nobody shoots 100, but is still very unfortunate timing. Good news, though, alone got himself a Maelstrom of his own. Parker has the Echo, so progress is still being made here in terms of the itemization for the Infamous cores, but will that be enough right now? Because they still have to deal with what you have to assume is going to be another round of aggression here now that the cores on the Noun side have started picking up some steam themselves.
Yeah, and this is a unfortunate route that they're taking here, especially because Alone, yeah, is just very easily able to dodge that out. But this is also a play that you were going to look to make on Nouns regardless. And if they still find Oscar, that would be crazy. And I almost believe it because of how crazy Storm Spirit is as a hero. But they will decide to just get this free pressure and free damage onto the tier 1 instead. And this is a very important tower that Infamous do not want to lose. But, I mean, look at Oscar. He is terrified to walk up. He does not want to give himself that big opportunity onto him. I mean, even alone, things are very cautious right now, but at the end of the day, I think this is still going to be Infamous just losing their tower. They're just waiting, though, for a stun to land. Now that they know where the Nyx is, I think they can just kind of peel back, though. They know that they're not getting gone on with Vendetta. They know there's no smoke wrap. So taking the map is also just a very easy play, because Infamous need to respond with 4 or 5 heroes, and then Nouns just take up all the space, because they have the TPs, they have the teleportation, they have a Storm Spirit. I mean, they just get to play in 3 lanes pretty much all the time.
They have an idea that Husky's in this tree line, but if they go chasing after him, then they're not going to be in position to try and finish this tower. They would love to do that quickly, but now you see a TP coming in for Moo. That is very far forward. He takes a lot of damage off of the ward. Now he's just going to get picked off. Good news is that they were able to take that tower down in the middle lane, but now they're on the retreat, and if they don't hold up here, they might lose their own tower.
Oh.
But Gunner is actually going to get rooted up. He's able to zip himself out, though. That's the good news. Well, actually, it's just all good news right now. Wow, Nows are just going to push their way in. Michael and Oscar taken down. Oscar, always thinking in terms of those objectives, denies that tier 1 before he dies, knowing really that's the only play that he has to make. But Infamous of 2 minds there. Alone backs off, Parker goes away, but the rest of the lineup sort of still remains under that tier 1, and that just gives Nouns the perfect opportunity.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good bait from Nouns, but it's also not the worst decision for Infamous to go for. They see the Night Stalker top, he showed in a wave, and then he immediately TPs back mid. I mean, that's a play that you don't really expect your opponents to make, but at the same time, I think this Parker Blank needs to do a whole lot. He went for this over a farming oriented build to try and get that play going, but well, he can't do anything to help A. But now Moo?
He's in some trouble, needs backup. The Storm, though, is just going to zip on the backline looking for the kill onto A. He is able to get it, but that is going to be the trade-off. Of course, for support, working relatively well for Infamous. Can they get any more, however? Oscar's pushing forward. Michael thought about it, but I don't know if they were going to have too many options open to them. But now they just need to not lose cohesion. Yeah, Michael gets a little bit too far away. They're going to jump in onto him. Bushwhack's there for the follow-up stun. Carapace not enough to save the day. They will lose another hero, and yeah, this is the problem for Infamous. If you want to get involved in these fights, then by all means, you can give it a shot, but after the fight, when they start to split up, go their separate ways, start looking for farm, there's still a Storm, there's still a Prophet, there's still a Night Stalker who's just going to completely punish those sorts of split-up plays.
Yeah, and now my big concern for Infamous is before they could punish a Noun's mistake by having the pit down, by having the Carapace stun to follow up. But now, Nouns have two BKBs that are about to be done on the horizon here. I think Kosubile has his just a little bit earlier than Gunner, and unfortunately, now the game is going to be Infamous either killing a target off instantly or running away and trying to find that fight after the BKBs, because unfortunately, during BKBs, until this Tiny picks up a little bit more speed, Parker isn't really able to just brute force his way into that team fight. And I think that's where Nouns is going to be at their strongest here. If they could pair this up with, yeah, a Moo Blink Dagger, I mean, this is their timing. I think this is going to be their peak in the game. If they could just really close off these tier 2s, if they could just get even more farm, this high ground ward, I mean, this cliff, I'm terrified right now. If any Infamous hero walks over there, it's a huge risk, but Michael is fearless. He's pushing forward. He has a nice ward to play with, so I can see why he's comfortably here, but
Alarm bells ringing. They saw that DD rune disappear, but the dust is a little bit late and a little off the mark, actually, for that matter. So Michael just gets away with one, snags a double damage rune. Don't know if he's going to get the chance to do anything with this, but I mean, keeping it out of the hands of Nouns is just going to be a victory unto itself. But they need to be ready for this rotation. Here comes Nouns, smoked up as 4, moving their way towards the bottom lane, looking for that wraparound. Moo's going to pop the Ascension, and he goes right in. He's looking for A first. Easiest kill on the map for the Keeper of the Light, as they will bring him down, but now Gunner comes in, trying to get the jump in onto Parker, and this Tiny just has no backup whatsoever. A goes down, Parker falls. They're able to sort of bail out with 1 or 2 heroes, but Nouns just have really complete control right now, and oh my goodness. Middle lane, yeah, Alone. Alone has to run away from the Hoodwink, but he runs right into Gunner and Moo.
oh,
It's just one setback, one disaster after another here for Infamous. They're just getting completely outplayed, and at this point, starting to look back on it a little bit outdrafted as well, because they're just really struggling to make anything happen right now.
yeah, they just simply don't have enough functional heroes, I think, is what it comes down to. That and the Night Stalker just really being that much of a problem that they haven't really been able to deal with. They didn't really get to slow him down in the early game either. And I think they kind of all in here a little bit on the pit ward being their solution to not only the creep push, but dealing with their lockdown issues. And unfortunately, it's just a little bit too late. And I mean, Gunner is just doing whatever he wants. He's playing Storm Spirit, and then getting all of his mana get put back into him by the Pugna. I mean, it's just brutal. This bottom.
They do drop the gate down. They're going to try and force some fight here, and it is enough to take down Moo. Can they get anything else, though? TPs are coming in from Nouns. Looks like they're going to be able to make their escape, so that's a big kill if you're Infamous, right? Getting Moo. The problem is, it's still just your 3rd kill of the game, and even with the gold going their way, you take a look at the net worth sort of chart here. I mean, Parker's the highest, and he's still about, what, 2.5, 3K behind the Nature's Prophet. So they need a lot more plays like that, and they need to buy themselves a pretty significant amount of time here.
Yeah, and at the same time, I'm looking over at Parker's build-up, and it's not that you rush Silver Edge, you gamble at not having a BKB. He knows what he needs to actually team fight, and okay. Gunner with the Arcane, though, does just get to narrowly escape there. But this Tiny's power spike is not going to feel nearly as strong. It's not going to be him immediately turning around and solo killing these heroes. And going for the BKB, he certainly is limiting his damage a whole bunch, while Gunner ruins your entire smoke, more or less.
Kind of breaking up that play, and now if you're Infamous, you're just sort of sitting in the river here. I don't know, twiddling your thumbs. I mean, this is a pretty substantial amount of time that's now been taken going for this play that really doesn't develop into anything. So you see the cores, they try to go towards that sort of immediate source of farm, but now you see Parker and Oscar are farming basically in the same area. So when that kind of rotation fails, your efficiency takes a pretty dramatic hit, and as we've mentioned repeatedly, if you spread out across as much of the map as you can to try and find this farm, now you're just playing into Noun's hands anyway, because they're gonna go hunting, looking for pick plays.
Yep, their pickup potential is just unfortunately a little bit greater than you. And I think the big problem is when you are in this deficit, you're only going to get one item timing. You're not going to see that big sync up that Nouns did before, where they get 3 items on 3 different heroes around the map. All of these infamous cores are looking for BKBs, but you're going to see them just trickle in one after another. And unfortunately, you're not going to see that big spike. You're not going to see that big turnaround play. I think Parker is going to have his around the same time as the Ember, but then Oscar is still a very large target. It's where you're not going to see that picture perfect moment. At the same time, I think Michael maybe finished off a 4-staff, which is certainly nice. But look top, see Freak's hunting onto that same Nyx Assassin, and unless he gets a stun, nah, it's just dead.
Just points that crossbow right in Michael's face and picks up the kill. So able to find another pickoff. I think the Nyx did buy out before he died there, so might still have some stuff coming to him, but at this point, these are just tiny little incremental changes for Infamous, where it feels like they need some sort of home run play right now, but there just isn't any opportunity. If they go for this, yeah, then Gunnar just turns around, pops a BKB, they'll jump onto Oscar. He does have the barrier from the hood if he can pop it, but I'm not even sure that's going to be enough. Just look at the damage he's taking. Not even close. Barrier doesn't do any good. Costabile gets the kill, and the Nouns are in a perfect position now to push the tier 2 tower, and I don't know if Infamous really want to try and defend this, but Parker tries to push forward. He does have his BKB. Can he get it off in time? Well, he currently thinks he doesn't need it. We'll see if that works out. It looks like he is going to be able to fall back, so he will salvage that 9-second charge for now, but now he wants in. There's the BKB activated. Avalanche goes forward, Alone pushing through as well, but Moo able to pop the Dark Ascension. He'll fly in with the AoE Silence, and yeah, that's unfortunate. Michael just gets tossed back, taken down. Costabile, though, he is so low on health. Husky, big plays from the support. Get that little bit of heal in. That means that Infamous could not push any further forward even if they wanted to.
Yeah, you just get that really easy reset. I mean, it's a fantastic jump from Parker. He even disassembles his Echo Saber to try and get that BKB earlier, a BKB they needed for that team fight, and they can still throw mid. I mean, Alone is looking. He knows that he's the only core with BKB back up right now, so he's kind of pushing the issue, but it's also where the Pugna is brutal. There's always that reset. There's always that life drain. There's always that heal that's just keeping these Nouns cores alive, and then they just don't die. I mean, that was also just a fantastic counter initiation from Moo, just breaking up everything, but it's still just not what Infamous wanted. At the very least, they could defend the T2 mid, but I mean, it still feels like now, if Nouns can change this fight, it's going to be nighttime in 40 seconds. If they can move over towards that pit, get an Aegis into the hands of your Storm Spirit or your NP, I think that's where we probably see Nouns take this game.
Yeah, they really have the potential to just dictate the pace now. I mean, this is what we sort of talked about when we saw this lineup being picked up for them, that they would maybe try to play a bit more up-tempo, but this is kind of the perfect play in that regard. I thought maybe they could push the tempo a little bit and Infamous would have to respond. Infamous simply can't respond. Nouns are just doing whatever, whenever, and well, okay. They're going to back out of this Roche attempt, at least for now. Might have gotten a little bit spooked there. Infamous do go for the 5-man smoke. The only problem is they're going in the wrong direction here. So, just feels like we've said this so many times, only 25 minutes into the game, but it still stands. Infamous end up using a lot of time on plays that, in their credit, could work out, but simply don't find a target.
Yeah, and I mean, it's 4 heroes watching a tiny kill at tier 1. Meanwhile, Roche does just kind of happen. You can't really do, I think, much to get yourselves into the pit here. It's where Infamous are looking back at those timings, especially for Parker, looking for that Silver Edge, just giving him a little bit more burst damage. And there will be a tipping point. All it takes is 1 or 2 successful team fights for Parker to really bounce back here. And then you are that monster where suddenly the NP can't show his face, but It's also where Costabile, he's itemized pretty much correctly here. He has an AC, he has the armor, he can stay around in these fights for a very long time. You saw him turn around for a Scotty or Satanic, then suddenly you aren't ever bursting that hero. You know, Michael, well,
Hmm.
playing support versus Storm Spirit's not fun.
Just gonna get picked off again. Michael now 0-7, not a single assist for the Nyx Assassins so far, so that game plan from Infamous has kind of fallen through as well. The Nyx is not giving them really what they need right now. I suppose you do, at the end of the day, always have Vendetta just for scouting purposes, but if that's the only thing that you're getting out of this hero, that's not ideal circumstances by any means, as the Tier 2 tower will fall top, and now they're looking for Oscar here. Underlord has not left yet. He remains in position. Parker's coming over, but this is a few too many heroes, I think. Parker may just have to go for the BKB and run, as there's the BKB. Not leaving just yet, though. Now he'll TP home, but that means Oscar is left all alone here. His TP gets canceled, and they find the kill.
And then mid.
Gunnar jumps in. Michael fighting. Nice impale. Might actually be enough to keep him alive, because Gunnar, you don't want to dive the base for a kill onto the next assassin at this point. So he'll pump the brakes on that one, and Nouns will only get the one kill, but they still have so much control of the map right now. They're pushing in bot, they're pushing in mid. You see Alone up in the top lane attempting to go after this tier 1, and he should get this. That glyph is nice, but no one's actually coming up via TP to defend it. So just be able to grab an objective, but you see how carefully Alone has to play here. Even with his BKB, you would rather just let the creeps do it.
Yeah, and at the same time, you know, this is your Aegis. This is a timing that Infamous want to avoid really as much as they possibly can. Parker didn't have his BKB anyway, so it's not like they want to go for any crazy jump. But at the same time, all of these Nouns heroes, there's so much luxury. There's so much room for everyone to grow, especially the supports. I mean, you have Pug the Hoodwink going into this kind of slow mid game, and I mean, it is 3-24. The Infamous plays are not really working out right now, especially for your next assassin, unfortunately for Michael, because you'd know he'd love that XP. You know, he'd love to find those pickoffs. Unfortunately, he's just kind of have to sitting behind A right now, which is kind of an ugly position to be in. But this is a big moment. I think really, if Infamous can, they'd love to kill Moo, get this gem, because now Nouns are just going to take your entire map. They're going to D-word you everywhere. They're just going to move around, not really let you play in any of these junctions. At the same time, can Infamous just really bide their time and sit on their high ground? I don't think so either. It's why they're kind of spread out right now, and they actually place the high ground ward there, the Tinker ward, just so that way they can afford to be out on these kind of offshoots of the map. But at the same time, I don't know. I'm really concerned, especially because Kosubio is about to have a Satanic. Then the Tiny really can't kill him during that BKB. There's a whole bunch of issues with this next set of items coming through. Not to mention Gunnar looking towards that Ags. I mean, that's usually the nail in the coffin. If he finds Alone, TPing.
Oh boy, Alone. Not even sure if he knew how close Gunnar was, but that's big. He's able to keep himself alive, and Infamous will continue to buy time for themselves here, really. That's just the only play that they have, but how much time can they buy? What are they building towards? Parker getting close to that silver edge, so some of these could be, ooh, game changers. This move. Well, he's got the silence, he just doesn't have the detection. Can't actually see Michael there. Now he'll pop the Ascension. They're really looking for Michael here, and they are going to be able to get that vision onto him. Michael now just has to sort of hold his ground, but he's not going to last very long here into the tree line, but Husky will take him down. The question is, yep, did they find Parker? They're going to try to get onto him. The BKB's there, and
Can't TP.
oh, he can't TP. That's just rude. He's going to try for it now, but his BKB wears off. That is hell of a talent from Costabile. The Sprout leash talent at 20 just kind of shuts down that play.
Yeah, and you know, I've asked NP players before, you know, why does it work through BKB? And you know what they always say? Oh, well, Sprout works through BKB. It's just trees around you. Haha, of course it would go through BKB. But it doesn't tell you that it does that. It's the biggest oversight in all of Dota 2. I hate this hero.
Well, Costabile is loving it at the moment because he is just massive on this hero. Hasn't died a single time, which, now that I think about it, there's only 3 kills on the Infamous side, so that's maybe not quite as big of an accomplishment considering basically no one has died on the downside of things. But, I mean, it just goes to show, Infamous really don't have any play to make here. They can't punish any of these sort of crucial heroes on the Noun side, so they continue to just make plays at their leisure. And at this point, if your Nouns, I would maybe advise sort of picking things up a little bit more, right? You see Husky trying to get more damage onto that tier 2 mid. They're looking for another pick off there onto Michael. You need to sort of get it in gear a little bit more, because there is still progression from the Tiny, from the Ember Spirit, and you are probably in your strongest position relative to your opponents right now. Might as well just really put that final nail in the coffin while you still can.
I'm also looking at, oh my goodness. Maybe overdid it a little bit there on the TPs on the Ember, but you know, hey, I think they're gonna finally kill this Tinker Ward with the gem, and they certainly do need to continue doing a good job of pushing in these side lanes. Aegis, of course, just expired a few minutes ago. They can certainly walk into the next pit if they really want to take it towards there, but that's where Nouns have still been doing a very good job of closing off the map. If you look over at Infamous's side, only 2 heroes have been getting farmed. It has just been Alone. It has just been Parker. Supports aren't really getting anything. Oscar is only getting creeped waves that are hitting the tier 3s, and he's still looking for a BKB of his own, a BKB that's been almost 10 minutes in the making. And, okay, smoke up, a smoke without Tiny. And they're actually going to try and meet the Tiny towards bottom, but I don't know, without an Orchid, without any burn, they love Husky.
Staff didn't actually get him over the cliff, so Husky should go down, but now Moo makes his move. Blinking onto the back line, looking for A. They're going to TP in Costabile as well. Able to find that first kill. Now they want in onto Alone. The leash comes up huge once again as your Ember can't jump. Very balanced. And now they're in onto the Underlord. Oscar, nowhere to go. He's just going to get taken down, and God, this Prophet pick is just decimating everything Infamous are trying to do. They just can't get away. Okay, Parker trying to get himself out of here with the BKB. That Sprout actually did not catch him this time, so he is going to be able to fall back, but now look at Infamous having to use those buybacks, just popping 3 of them to try and keep this fight going as Alone jumped pretty far in the backline. He's looking to take down Moo. This would be a good kill if he can get it. He will be able to do so, but the rest of Nouns sort of made their escape. They got the Storm and Costabile out of there, so if you're Infamous, you finally find some kills, 2 big ones on the board, but it cost you 3 buybacks and a lot of bodies.
I'm still just mad at the way that Alone died. I don't know. It's just the Sprout landing on a hero, not being able to BKB cast any of your movement abilities. It's crazy. It's infuriating. And look at that Roche respawn timer. That's your fastest possible respawn timer coming into the game here. And unfortunately, I feel like that heavily favors Nouns here. Not to mention that it's only a minute till nighttime. I mean, playing versus 0 buybacks as well on the Infamous side. This game is really wanting Nouns to kind of take this victory, I think. And unfortunately, these supports, well, that's your first dieback. And now Michael.
Okay, Parker's going to come in here and try and do something, but Gunner really didn't even care. BKB wasn't even back up. They just don't have enough damage to deal with them, and now Gunner thinking about going back in. He's going to get stunned up by the Carapace, though, but he continues to go forward. BKB activated. They're going to lock down Michael, taking him down. Double kill for Z-Freak. And Oscar was physically blocked by the Sprout. Nobody goes on to him, but he was not having a fun time here. Really nobody on the side of Infamous is. As Nouns are going to get themselves back into the Roche pit here, looking for the Aegis and the Shard, or maybe just a fight. 3-man smoke, trolling around the pit, looking to see who's sort of hanging out nearby, and Alone is hanging out. Can he get himself away? Blinking himself out. Moo wants to continue the chase. There's going to be the BKB TP, and Stable is still in the pit, so he's not there to cancel it.
Yeah, but hey, at the end of the day, secures Roche is most likely going to be given over to Gunner. No, actually, Costabile ends up taking it, and there is also an Ag Shard that is going to get passed over to the Pugna, but look bottom, Z-Freak. Oh my goodness, Parker found a pick.
That's a big kill streak. He was worth 1,000 gold. Jesus, Parker. That's a lot of money,
no.
But now he has to fight his way out. Look at Costabile just going to man up, looking for the fight. Tiny still leashed. He finally leaves the Sprout and tries to get away, but there's another Sprout. Unbelievable. The cooldown on the Sprout. Just not really fair considering what this talent now does to it. You have a leash on an 8-second cooldown. 6-second duration. That's just gross. And now Parker, there's not a lot you can do about that, right? Your BKB is not effective. He tried to cut through the first Sprout, gets caught by the second, and You see in terms of his item build, he's just queuing up a rapier at this point. We are sort of hitting that desperation period for Infamous.
Yeah, I remember the meme, used to be +4 treant summoned, that great talent, but it's just kind of insane that this is where we're at with that hero, as Oscar gets ran all the way back into the base, and the gem is back in Boo's hand from the support pickoffs earlier near the Roche pit, so it's not like they got any of their control back here, and they do have buyback on Tiny, but I honestly don't think we're
Tier
going to
3
see
is
it forced out.
melting.
Yeah, it's just gonna die so quickly, especially with Husky. Just the 5 position with the Nether Blast, and now with the wards placed, any attempt for Michael to get into this area, it's just not gonna happen here.
Sprout down onto Michael. They're not going to be able to take him down, but they get what they want anyway. They grab the objectives, and now they're... Yeah, they're considering a push down into the bottom lane. Might as well go for 2 here. Infamous have not shown you the ability to actually hold off this push, so they're going to try and fight their way through it now, but even if they take Osable down once, he's got the Aegis, so he can afford to just stand on this front line, heals up with the Satanic, and he's right back to work. Second lane of Rax under attack, and Infamous, at this point, I mean, you got to try something, right? Parker's going to go in there. They're looking for the Ava into the toss. They actually broke the Nature's Prophet as well, but look at Moo being a distraction on the back line, just jumps in with that silence, and Parker's the one to go down. He's dead with no buyback, and that might just be the end of it. Oscar will not get the TP home in time. He falls as well. No buyback on your Underlord either. And at this point, I don't know. This might just be it for Infamous. Maybe they'll get one last shot at a fight. They are going to try and push in now, but Alone isn't really able to join Michael on the front line. He goes for the back line instead, but he can't secure any of these kills. Husky's low, but he's not gone, and Alone's the one who gets silenced up, stunned, pulled in, taken down, and there's your GG.
Brutal. Absolutely brutal. I think really now it's just played a numbers game, and it kind of just works on every single avenue. I feel like coming into game 2, depending on what we see these teams choose pick order-wise, I really want to see this Storm Spirit gone. I think getting the Pugna just made it feel even worse for Infamous, but man, it's just brutal to watch every single time it happens.
It's just... It's a little... Well, not a little. It's a lot too strong at the moment, and you combine it up with some of the other heroes that they were able to sort of pick up there, right? In the form of the Night Stalker, in the form of the Nature's Prophet, and Nouns just had the green light to basically be aggressive from start to finish in this game, and that's reflected in the kill count. I mean, we were trying to find positives for Infamous, but at the end of the day, it's a 37-6 scoreline. You're not really going to mount a comeback from that.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of ways that maybe they could have made this game seem better. Did Alone need to come bottom more? Feel like having a larger presence in the Night Stalker's lane? Did Michael need to be mid more to shut down Gunner? Did A do a good enough job in his lane? There's so many ways that I think maybe Infamous could have shifted things around, but at the same time, now it's just played so well with their rotations. Husky and Z-Freak were both just kind of wiping the floor with the Infamous supports in terms of levels. They were just simply more useful in the early stages of the game. Then they have this triple setup lineup where you TP in at the tower with both your Night Stalker and your Storm Spirit, and then Kostabile comes in. And just simply had the better kill lineup. And unfortunately, Infamous's heroes just couldn't find as many opportunities. And you draft the Nyx and the Ember Spirit to look for those pickoffs, to look for that easy entrance onto the backline, while Oscar and the Tiny kind of take over the forefront of the fight. But it just never happened in that way. Nouns really never gave them a fair team fight, unfortunately, and Infamous weren't able to punish in the meantime. I think just a very clean win. I think going into game 2 again, we're gonna have to see how these teams decide to prioritize pick, but something's got to change.
Yeah, adjustments have to be made here because Infamous cannot afford another sort of one-sided performance like what we just saw. Meanwhile, for Nouns, first game of the group stage here, and they come out looking to make a statement. So pretty damn impressive from them. We'll see now if they can keep this momentum going, roll themselves into a potential 2-0 sweep, or if Infamous are going to be able to fight back. So we will be stepping away for just a moment. When we return, however, we will have the start of that game 2 draft. So stick around. Get right